morning. If you have a Bible, open up to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20. For the next couple weeks, we're going to be looking at the 10 Commandments. So the 10 Commandments are everywhere. They're etched in courthouses. They're debated in courtrooms. They're printed on yard signs. They're carved into political talking points. They show up in clickbait articles like the 10 Commandments of clean eating. I saw a video this week of, don't hear what I'm not saying, the 10 Commandments of gambling. I was searching things and it just showed up. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't have a problem. 10 Commandments of fantasy football. Like, it's just everywhere. We know them. We know some of them. We quote a good chunk of them, but for all of our familiarity, do we really know why they're there? I remember in youth ministry as a teenager, one of our youth pastor, one day we were teaching through this, and he asked our little room of like 30, 40 middle school, high schoolers if anyone thought they knew all 10 commandments. And of course, I was like, oh yeah, I know all 10 commandments. And he was like, all right, I think I got like 6 of them. And I was sorely embarrassed, and I went and sat down. And then he asked anybody else, and no one else wanted to do it. And we realized, like, we know about them, but we didn't even know why they were there, much less know all of the ones that were there. Why are they there? Why does God give the people of Israel these 10 commandments? They're not just moral codes. They're not just religious rules. If we remember back to last week, they're here as rules for the relationship. They're God saying, if you, Israel, are going to walk with me, if you're going to love me, if you're going to belong to me and be my treasured possession, here's what here's what life is going to look like. And we get more about the rules of relationship as we dive into them than I think we realize on the surface. The 10 Commandments are kind of like dating, right? Eventually, as you're with someone long enough, there becomes some spoken or unspoken rules. Like, you don't just ignore each other for days and weeks at a time. You don't hang out, text, talk with your ex or other interest. You definitely don't date 2 people at once, completely hypothetical. These boundaries that are put in place in that kind of relationship, they don't crush the relationship. They're not meant to stifle. In fact, they help it thrive. They give boundaries so that they can live and the relationship can grow and become all that it might mean to be. And the 10 Commandments are doing the same. They're not just meant to crush the joy and the life out of the people of God. No, in fact, they're boundaries so that the relationship can thrive and grow. They're not just don'ts. They're declarations of I love you and I belong to you. In the same way that going on dates with multiple women at the same time does not declare that I am interested in you. It actually says the other way. Last week, in chapter 19, we saw God speak to Israel on Mount Sinai, and he said this: "You are my treasured possessions." God didn't start with demands. He didn't start with a list of do's and don'ts. He started with devotion. That I love you, that I treasure you, that I value, that I've not only rescued you for the reason that I love you, I want to keep walking with you because I love you. It started with love, not with force. And we talked about last week that God treasures us so that we can treasure him. And that's where this entire section of Exodus kind of roots itself in, is that God treasures his people so that they can treasure him, which brings us to the question of the 10 Commandments. Well, how do we treasure God? Well, if chapter 19, right, is setting up that God treasures us so that we can treasure him, then you naturally flow into chapter 20 and you get all of a sudden these rules for the relationship that set us up and tell us how to treasure God. The first 4 commandments show us how to love God. The last 6 show us how to love people. That's how they're broken up. 4 about God, 6 about people. And Moses breaks them up in this way all the way over in Deuteronomy chapters 5 and 6. And then when Jesus is asked what the greatest commandment is of all of the Bible, he quotes Deuteronomy chapter 6 saying, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." In fact, Jesus in Matthew 22 said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself." So he took Deuteronomy 6, then he expanded and added on to it. And then in Luke 10, a teacher of the law who's debating Jesus about what is the greatest commandment says, "With all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." And Jesus says, "You're right." So how do we love God? Because there's a lot of rules in this book. But God started with, I love you so that you can love me. I treasure you so that you can treasure me. And if we frame the 10 Commandments right, all of a sudden they're rules for a relationship. They're the how behind the what we're called to do. And if the greatest commandment according to Jesus is to love God and to love people, and the 10 commandments are framed around loving God and loving people, like what's going on here? According to Jesus and Moses, we're called to love God with our heart, with our soul, with our mind, and our strength. And while these 4 categories, heart, soul, mind, and strength, don't map perfectly onto the first 4 commandments, I'll admit that, I believe they work, and I believe they fit. And I think they fit because 3 things are true. One, right, Jesus knew all 613 commands. We're just going to talk about 10, but that means there's 603 more in the Torah, in the law, in the law code of the Bible. And Jesus knew every single one of them. And when he asked what was the greatest one, he said, love God and love people. Jesus also knew, and it's very much agreed upon in Jewish tradition, that the 10 commandments are representative and foundational for the other 603 of the 613. In fact, most people argue that the rest of the 603 are just working out the 10. So you've got the 10, and the 603 making 613 are all coming out of the 10, and Jesus says that the 10 is summed up in one, love God and love neighbor. And so if we're called to love God in the first 4 and we're called to love neighbor in the next 6, I'm just here to argue that I think the first 4 fit into heart, soul, mind, and strength because Jesus not only knew the law, wrote the law, but knew how it was meant to work and all work together. I think Jesus knew what he was doing. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the first 4 commandments through the lens of what Jesus says is the greatest commandment, to love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So let's start where Moses starts and where Jesus starts. Our heart. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Notice it says words, the words that I speak to you, not commands. Because before God gives Israel instructions, he gives them context, right? A reminder that these words come from a redemptive relationship. They didn't have chapter and verse markings here. This was one speech that was flowing into one another, but even if we were hearing this speech, we oftentimes forget what someone said like 5 minutes ago. And he's just reminding them these rules are in the context of a redemptive relationship. I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of slavery. God doesn't start with rules. He starts with rescue. And after rescue, then comes the command. You'll have no other gods before me. So what does before me mean? Well, in Hebrew, the word for before is all, the preposition, and it carries a really wide range of semantic meaning. It can mean upon or beside, beyond, above, in addition to, against. In other words, God is saying, not just don't prioritize God, other gods ahead of me. He's saying don't put anything next to me, like at all. I think he chose the word all in Hebrew with a very wide semantic range because what he's saying is don't have any other gods upon me. Don't have any other gods beside me, beyond me, above me, over me, in addition to, against me. There's just me. This is a call to exclusive devotion. I really think that's what the first commandment boils down to. Exclusive devotion. Let me illustrate it this way. Kelsey and I disagree on the meaning of the word couple. She thinks it means 2 or 3 and maybe even sometimes 4. And I say, no. A couple is 2. A few is 3 or 4, maybe 5. But once you hit 5, you're really in handful category. And then once you get past like 6 or 7, you just should say the number. But she still thinks, 11 years after being married, that a couple can mean 3. And still, after 11 years of married, my smart mouth every time says, no, you're wrong. And I know that you're wrong. And I know that you know that you're wrong. And here's why. Because if I was dating someone else and there was 3 people in this couple relationship, you got angry. It gets me nowhere every time I bring it up. But it does prove my point, so I'm right. So I feel good about that. A couple is 2. A throuple, I hate that word, is 3. End of sentence. Why does it matter? Because love's exclusive. The relationship was meant to be exclusive. Me and Kelsey, not me and Kelsey and Jolynn. Like that didn't work. It never was going to work. Me and Kelsey, a couple was meant to be exclusively, and she expected reasonably that I would be exclusively devoted to her. Exclusive devotion, that's the heart of the command. To love God with all your heart is to love God alone. To love God alone. Not God and your job, not God and your money, not God and pornography, not God and your retirement dreams, not God and anything else. Love God alone. And it's not just about exclusivity, it's about priority. I am called to love my church, and I do. I'm called to love my family, and I do. I'm called to love my wife, and I do. Like, those are all good things that I am called to love, and if I didn't love those things, like I wouldn't arguably be loving God or loving them. But it's not only about exclusivity, it's about priority. That I'm called to love God first, above you guys, above my kiddos, above my wife. That's not pitting them against one another. In fact, as we're going to see next week, by loving God, I'm set free to love you, and by loving you, I am loving God, is what John argues in his letters. But I'm called to love God above, first and foremost, over my kids, over my wife, over y'all, over me. Because if not, then I've put another God above him, at least beside him, if not above him. And it turns out that I wouldn't be loving them at all anyways. To love God with all your heart is to love him with exclusive devotion. He gets our first love, not our leftovers. He isn't just above other things. He's before all things. There's no other gods beside him. In addition to him, my loyalty belongs to him first, always, forever. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Second, to love the Lord your God with all your soul. How do we do that? I remember growing up quoting that, but like, what is a soul? That's a whole nother sermon conversation. But Exodus chapter 20, verse 4, loving the Lord God with all your soul. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Now, if you read this, then you go back and read the Genesis creation account, that's exactly how it kind of lays out. The earth, under the earth, over the earth. And it's Moses' long way of saying, no carved images of anything, of all of the created cosmos ever. In the earth, under the earth, above the earth, that's everything. None of them. Verse 5, you shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, Yahweh, your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your soul. So I'm going to argue that we love the Lord our God with all our soul by refusing to make, bow down to, and serve idols. In their day, context, and culture, they were literally talking about things made out of wood or stone. That's why as you read the Hebrew Bible, as you read the Old Testament, you'll see in Isaiah and Jeremiah and throughout the prophets, these comments about gods of wood and stone. And it's because they were literally making little idols, little images of God out of wood and stone. And Moses is saying, no, don't. God's telling Moses to tell the people, like, no, don't do that. Don't make an image of me. But before we get into that, there's a progression here. And don't miss it, because I think it's really informative. Make, bow, serve. Did you see the order of the verbs in there? Don't make an idol, don't bow down to it, don't serve it. Because that's how idolatry works every single time. See, first you make an idol, which is a substitute god, which is what they would literally do. They'd take wood or stone and they'd whittle or carve it down. They'd make something physically representative. They would make an idol and set it above, beyond, beside, before, along with God. They would make an idol. And then they would literally bow down to it. They would prostrate themselves on the ground, and they would just get on their knees and their face, and they would bow down to it. They not only would shape a substitute, they would then give it reverence or authority, right? Because if you bow down to something, you're saying something's above you and you're below it. So they'd make it, they'd bow down to it, and then finally, you would serve it. So you bow down to it in humility, giving it power and authority, and then when you stand up, you leave it to go serve it. That's how it works. You make it, you bow down to it, you serve it, you give it your allegiance, and you begin to orient your life and your decisions around it. At first, it'll feel like you're in control, because that's how idolatry works and what it lies to you is, no, I made this. I put it on the pedestal. I decided about it. I'm in control. But eventually, the thing that you shaped begins to shape you. The thing that you put in front of you begins to get inside of your heart and your soul. It begins to form your thoughts and your affections and your desires. You think that you were the one that was holding the chisel, but in fact, you're just handing over your soul. See, when you build an idol, whether it's comfort or success or approval or even some twisted version of God that agrees with you on everything, you're still going to call him Jesus, but he's your Jesus, not the Jesus of the Bible. You start as the creator. You have made God in your image and your likeness after what you want him to look like and be like. You start as the creator. But churches, if you just read the Bible, even glancing through it, you will always end up as the slave. Every time. You can't create an idol and still be the master. Masters don't bow down to things. You'll start as the creator, but you'll always end as the slave, and you'll rise up to do its bidding. And it will control your life, and it will wreck your life every single time. But here's where the command gets even a little bit deeper. See, God isn't against having an image, which is what the word idol is often translated as. It's idol, but it's actually the word salim, which is the word for image. And there's the word salim actually shows up first in Genesis 1 and 2, because God isn't against having an image because he's already made one. It's you and me. All the way back in Genesis chapter 1, verses 28 to 30, God made humanity, all of us, male and female, all of us, in his image and in his likeness. God already crafted and shaped his image and representation in the world, and it's us. He's not against having an image. He's against us creating a substitute for what he's already created. The problem isn't image making. The problem is image replacing. That we want God not in God's image, but we want God in our image, to be like us, to serve us, to do what we want when we want him to do it. The second command isn't just prohibiting idols. It's protecting our soul. Like, God gives commands for a reason. Like when I tell my children not to walk on the back of the couch, it's not because I'm a killjoy. It's because they're unstable and unsteady, and they're going to fall and bunk their head, and we're going to go to the doctor in the ER. I make rules most of the time because I love them and I care about them. God makes rules all the time because he loves us and he cares about it. It's not just a prohibition, it's a protection of our soul. You were made to bear God's image, not to build a substitute for God's image. And when you try to reshape or reform God, you will always remake him to look like you every single time. And when you worship something without a soul, right? Because that's the whole joke that Jeremiah and Isaiah pick up on. It's this soulless, lifeless thing. It's a piece of wood. Like, what's it going to do for you? It doesn't have any power and it doesn't have any soul. It doesn't have any personhood. And when you read those parts of the prophets, you're kind of like, man, he's kind of mean. Like, whoa. And it's also kind of stupid. Why would anyone like whittle a piece of wood and make it an idol? We might not have idols of wood and stone, but we do have idols of comfort, success, approval, reputation, money, fame, ease, comfort. And all of those things are not only powerless to actually give you what they say they can, but they're soulless. They're soulless. And when you begin to worship it, you will be shaped and become like it, and you'll start losing a part of your soul too. That's why this command's a big deal. It's not just about shaping something of the created realm to look like what you think God looks like. It's not just about wood and stone. Yes, idols are offensive to God because you're saying, I can do what you did better than you did. No, human, we can't. We never have. We mess it up every time. But God prohibits idols because they're deadly to us. They tarnish the soul. They eat away at what makes us human because we were made to reflect him, not make something that reflects us. So the first command calls for exclusive devotion, that I love him alone and above all other things. Then the second command is calling for exclusive worship. That not only do I have him above and alone, that I'm gonna worship him, that I'm gonna give my soul to him alone, who breathed a soul, or in the Nefesh, that word, when you read in the Genesis account, that he breathed into their lungs, that I'm gonna give my soul to the one who made my soul. I'm not gonna give my soul to something that I created that doesn't have one. Exclusive devotion and exclusive worship. Worship of the real God. Not a tame one that we made, not a safe one that we like, not a version that we can manage or mold to meet our needs, but the God of the Bible, who does all that he pleases and is always good and always just. Exclusive devotion, exclusive worship, heart, soul, and now mind. Love the Lord your God with all your mind. Now, I know this part makes the non-sportsy people, if you were here for that a few weeks back, the non-athletic people here in the room, like really excited, like, yes, all my mind, I can do this. I can read a book. I can understand theology. I can write papers. I can debate things. I can do this. I can love God with my brain all day long. And you hear mind, and you think normally a commandment for bookworms. I can read books and love God by reading big leather-bound books written by really dead pastors. Huzzah! And you can, yes, like that's absolutely true. But that's not the full scope of what I think Moses and Jesus are getting after. You should love God with your mind. You should put good in, that God might shape good in you, and you might see a reflection of the goodness of God come out of you. But you can read a book about theology, and you can score the game-winning touchdown in a way that loves and glorifies God. And you can read that same book about theology and score that same game-winning touchdown, and it has nothing to do with love or the glory of God and all about you. So the third commandment, Exodus chapter 20, verse 7. You shall not take the name of Yahweh your God in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. So I went to Texas A&M University, and let's just say that the Saturday football games had a lot more mentions of Jesus Christ and God than all of the churches in the area collectively put together, multiplied by like 10. The student section was a fun place. Now, yes, the command is talking about reverence in our speech, because unlike any other creation, we're given the ability and the dignity of spoken word. So we should use our words to speak life and not to tear life down. We should use our words to speak reverence and to speak holiness, and not just let whatever comes out of our mouth come out of our mouth. It is talking about that, like using the Lord's name as a substitute, profanity, or an addition to something to make your point. It's not okay. Like that's not holy. It's just bad vocabulary. Be smarter, please, or just be quiet. That is what it's talking about. But I think we really flatten the commandment if we just go like, well, I didn't say GD, I just said, so I'm okay. No. If it's just about the words out of your mouth, then it really did become really nitpicky, of like, you made sure that the fork was separated from the spoon by 2 inches and not 1.5 inches at dinner time. Like, what? Really, God? Like, you're really that worried about it? It's more than that. I think it really is about a mindful awareness of God's presence with us. Because the whole Bible can really be summed up in God with us. And what made Israel distinct, other than God's presence was with them? Don't take his name in vain, because he is amongst you. And because on this side of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, he's not just around us. He's in us. He's in us. And so we should be really mindful of what comes out of our mouth. It's like going over to grandma's house. You talk way different at grandma's house than you do not at grandma's house. And grandma's house is not just somewhere you go, it's something that's in you now. It's about how we carry his name in all of our lives and with our lives. So let's talk terms here. God's name. In Scripture, God's name represents his entire person. It's not just, there's Justin the person and there's Justin the name. When you say Justin Uri, you think things, because my name represents my person. Same's true with God. It's his presence, it's his character, it's his reputation. Therefore, to carry his name is to carry him. If his name represents all of who he is and what he's done, then carrying his name is carrying him. It's like when I would go out on Fridays and Saturdays in small town Texas and my daddy would tell me, don't forget whose kid you are. Because I was carrying the name of John Urey, who ran the hospital, into small town Texas, and what I did reflected on him. Whether that was good or bad, mostly good. I didn't get caught, so we'll take it that. There's God's name, and the Hebrew word for take, that verb there means to lift or to carry or to bear, like hoisting a flag or wearing a badge or putting on a backpack. It's something that you take with you that everyone can see. And the word for vain means empty or deceptive or worthless. So to take, carry, wear, have with you, hoist over you, the Lord's name, his entire person and reputation in vain isn't just about the words that come out of your mouth. It's living in a way that empties God's name of his weight and glory. It's living in a way that proclaims that I don't really think he exists, or at least his opinion doesn't matter. So I can do what I want, I can say what I want, whenever I want, because he doesn't carry weight in my life. It's carrying God's name casually, or carelessly, or forgetfully. That's why I think this command is about the mind. It's about loving God with mindful awareness. I think we have done a really good thing in American culture in the last decade or so, probably 20 years, where we've tried to create some delineations of like there's work life and there's family life. And that's a great delineation to have. There's my home life and there's my professional life. And I try to keep those things, fairly separated so that I'm not bringing work home and I'm not bringing home into the workplace, so I can honor God with my work and then I can go home and honor God with my family and be fully present in both of those places. I think that's great. But I think what in part has happened as we segregated life and work, we also segregated church and life. I carry God's name in here. I'm responsible for God for what I do in here or what I do in Connection Group or what I do when I serve with my church. But that's where I carry God's name. And as I walk into my home sphere, or I walk into my softball league sphere, or I walk into my work sphere, I put on a different identity, I put on a different name badge, and I walk in as dad, or I walk in as husband, or I walk in as pitcher, or catcher, or cleanup batter, or I walk in as the professional, the CEO, the accountant, the whatever, and you put on a different name as you walk into a different place. And if you put on a different name when you walk into a different place, there's different expectations that other people have for you and you have for yourself. But I think sometimes the expectations that other people have for us in those different places are not the same as the expectations that God has for us in those places. And when we live forgetful of his presence with us, when we live with just kind of a casual nod towards him, Moses is saying like we're carrying his name in vain. That it's just kind of like sticker tags with, hi, my name is, church it's Christian, Monday through Thursday it's coworker, Monday through Thursday evenings it's dad, or husband. Oh, Bible study. Let me flip back over. Got my name tag right now. Got my name tag, so I know how I'm supposed to act and be, and let me take that name tag off to put the other one on. But you can't take off the Spirit of God. He's in you. He's with you everywhere you go and everything you do. So how are you carrying his name? Because he's a name tag that you just can't get rid of. It just ends up stuck to your back. It's not just about head knowledge. It's about mindfulness. David puts it this way in Psalm 139. Where shall I go from your spirit? Where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. If I take wings to the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me and your right hand shall uphold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you and the night is bright as day, for the darkness is as light with you. You carry his name wherever you go. In the car, in the meeting, in the gym, in the quiet, in the chaos, in the temptation. So loving God with all of your mind is choosing to live in whatever moment you're in with a mindful awareness that he is with you. To speak and to think and to act in a way that says, God is with me right now, right here. Because love doesn't just show up when people are watching. Love honors even when no one else sees. In the Revelation chapter 3, the Apostle John writes this: "The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it, and I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. To the one who conquers, I will write on him the name of God." Christian, God has put his Spirit in you, which means wherever you are, whatever you're doing, his name is on you. Christian, like you're representing him with everything you do, with everything you say, with every reaction that you have. The third command isn't just about not misusing God's name with our mouths. It's about not misrepresenting his name with our lives. It calls us to mindful awareness, to live like God is with us because he is. And one of the most powerful ways that I've found to cultivate that in my life, because I'm a forgetful human who doesn't often remember that God is literally with him everywhere he goes and in everything that he does. Just pause. Intentionally. In the chaos, in the temptation, before you walk into work, before you walk into the gym, before you walk in the front door after work, after a long day. Just pause and say, God, I know you're here. Help me see you. Help me honor you in this moment. And then walk forward. Like there's a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire before and behind you. Because it's in you. Always. So just pause. Invite him into the moment, not because he needs to be invited, he's already there, but to invite him to write your eyes and your mind to notice that he's there, especially in the hard ones. Just pause. Exclusive devotion, exclusive worship, and a mindful awareness, because I couldn't come up with an exclusive word. And then lastly, love the Lord your God with all your strength. Verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yahweh your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male servant or your female servant, or your livestock or your sojourner who is within your gates. In other words, nobody. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Before we jump into this one, I want to be honest about a couple things. One, when it comes to Sabbath, we're just gonna dip our toe in the deep end and get out. We ain't got time. If you want the deep end, the Bible Project has an entire 12 long podcast series on it. It's phenomenal. Second, there are biblical, and there are differing opinions about what the Sabbath means for Christians on this side of life, death, resurrection of Jesus. Some believe the Sabbath regulations still stand, that you should Sabbath on Saturday or on Sunday. People fall in both camps in both places. Some people believe that Sabbath is a Saturday. Some believe it's Sunday. Some believe the Sabbath is a weekly rhythm that you should engage in. Others see it as a idea and a posture of rest, because Jesus said that he's the Lord of the Sabbath, and he said that it is finished, which is very similar to what God said when he said that the creation was finished, and then Jesus finished his work, and then he rested in the tomb, and God finished his work, and then he rested. The whole narrative is playing off together. It's one of the things the Lord opened my eyes to a couple years ago, and it's just continued to rock my mind. I'm not going to weigh in on all that today. You can go listen to Bible Project podcast and make your own decisions. But here is what I will say. God created the world with a rhythm of rest. 6 days you work, seventh day you Sabbath. He redeemed the people of God with a rhythm of rest. 6 days you work, seventh day you Sabbath. In an ancient Hebrew mindset, both in Genesis and here in Exodus, the Sabbath was the beginning of the week, not the end of it. So they were working from rest, not for rest, which is an entirely different psychology of work and a psychology of our relationship with God. We're working from fullness, not working from emptiness to get to fullness, to get emptied again. No, we work from full to then be empty, to be full, to be, it changes the schematic of the brain. It really does. There's not a scarcity anymore, because there's everything we have and everything we need is found in him. I'm getting off track. So what does this have to do with strength? Let's talk comparison. How strong am I? Compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger, or for the younger crowd, Chris Bumstead. I'm not. They're both Mr. Olympias. I'm not. How strong are Jack or Maven Grace or Noah compared to me? They're not. They're weak. I win wrestling every single time. How strong am I compared to God? I'm not. Loving God with all our strength is a call to exclusive trust. Exclusive trust. Trusting in God's strength and not in ours. And when we trust God's strength, we can work as worship, trusting Him with the results and the revenue. Right? I get after it, but Jesus told me that everything I need comes down from the Father above, that He sees my needs, He knows my needs, He hears my needs, and He supplies for all of my needs, which means that I hear, see, and know my needs, but I don't supply for my needs. The Father in heaven, from whom every good and perfect gift comes down from above, comes down to me. So I work hard and He takes care of the rest. So if I'm trusting Him and loving Him with all of my strength, then I can get after it and work hard and trust Him with the results and the revenue. In a similar fashion, when I trust in God's strength, I can rest as worship. I can stop too, because He supplies all of my needs, not me. And I can trust Him to sustain the results and sustain the revenue all on His own, just like He has always done for all of created time. It means I can show up to work at my job. I can show up to my home job with my family and my wife. I can show up to everything I do, and I can work hard at it, not just to be productive or to get something done, but to honor God with my effort and to trust Him with some results. Work is worship. It is. Adam and Eve were created with a job, but Adam and Eve and us, every single human, was created primarily for worship and not for work. God doesn't need us to do anything for Him. He just wants to be with us. Remember where this whole thing started? I treasure you so that you can treasure me. I didn't redeem you so you could do something for me. He doesn't need us, but He wants us. And we find dignity and value in work, and so He gives it to us. But we were created primarily to worship God, not work for God. For some of us, the rest, the intentional, the rhythmic, the guiltless rest is really, really hard. It feels unnatural. You'd rather just keep going. Because for some of you, whether it's yourself or your family, you just want to keep working to make sure that the provision keeps coming. But the deeper truth, you're afraid of what might happen if you stop. If I stop, then who's going to start? The idea of taking a God-honoring vacation or a real Sabbath makes your heart skip a beat or 7. I can't stop. If I don't stop, then if I stop, then all these other things are going to happen. Justin, because deep down, just like Israel here, we saw earlier, as you're going to see later, as we just keep moving forward, you struggle to trust that the Father who upholds the universe by the word of His power can uphold your tiny little part of your world when you don't do anything. And He upholds the whole thing with a word. And you get the flu and you're down for a week. You struggle to trust His omnipotence over your very real but very limited competence. I do too. But loving God with all, not just some of your strength, means loving Him not just in what you do for Him, but in how you rest with Him. So take the vacation. Take it. Take the day off. Actually use your PTO if you have it. Go to dinner with your spouse. Sit in the grass, play with the kids or the grandkids. Put the phone inside and go outside with them. It'll be okay. The world's not going to fall apart. And even if it does, what are you going to do about it? Go get ice cream with the grandkids. Just enjoy the presence. Not because your work is finished, because there's always going to be more for you to do. But you can rest in presence and enjoyment because God's work is finished for you. And when you rest, you're saying with your body and your strength, He's enough. And I exclusively trust Him to take care of me and those that He's put in my charge. God treasures us so that we can treasure him. And we treasure him by loving him with all our heart, exclusive devotion, with all our soul, exclusive worship, with all our mind, this mindful awareness, and all our strength through trust-filled work and rest. But God didn't start the relationship with demands. He started with love. He treasured us first, and in response, he invites us to treasure him in return. So here's the question. I have it actually written as, is there anything? But let's be honest, we haven't been fully redeemed by Jesus. We haven't been fully glorified. We have been redeemed. What in your heart, soul, mind, or strength is being shaped by another God? If so, come lay it down. Invite him into this moment. Ask him to open your eyes and give you the strength to lay down what you've carved in his place, because it's affecting not only your strength, but your soul and your mind and your heart. And receive again the love that started it all, that he loves you. Let's pray. Father, thank you for loving us. Not because we've earned it, because it's who you are. Thank you for treasuring us before we ever thought to treasure you. Forgive us for not loving you fully, wholly, and only, for the idols we've built, for the distractions we've served, and for the ways that we've carried your name without care. Help our souls to worship you, not a version that we've made, but the real you, holy, faithful, gracious, just, present. Help us to be mindful of your presence with us now, to live and to speak and to rest like you're here because you are. And now would we rest in your finished work and your abundant grace, not striving to earn your love, but responding to it, because you are enough. You always have been, and you always will be. It's in Jesus' name we pray.